Ground Warriors podcast, where we dive deep into mindset, strategies, tactics, and ways to really level up in your life. So, whether you're an elite performer, entrepreneur, modern day warrior, this is the podcast for you. So, we have a special guest today, and Yasmina has gone from shyness to a global super connector in a very, very short and extraordinary way. So, Yasmina, so awesome to spend some time with you today. And we got to spend some time in Costa Rica recently, building relationships. And so let's dive in and learn a little bit more about your journey from, the starting of your journey to today and where it's brought you.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for having me on, John. I so appreciate you and everything that you're about, and I'm just really excited that we get this time today. And yeah, it's been a journey for me. I'd say it's been about a 10-year journey. And so when it comes to building relationships or really connecting with people, I had a hard time of it at the beginning. When I was a kid, I was always a performer. I loved being on stage. I had a natural talent with acting and singing, but something would really happen, something really strange would happen when I would get off the stage. And that would be when I had to talk to people or be around anyone or literally say any words to any human as myself. And I would just get really shy and really awkward and clam up. I was the quiet kid that would hide in the back of the classroom and watch as other kids who were less smart than me shot their hands up with confidence while I'm there like, but what if I get it wrong and then they judge me? I'm not going to say anything. So I know what it feels like to be an outsider. I know what it feels like to know that there's things about you that are good, but to not really see that worth and to not really know how to claim your space and how to express that. And I remember I would be, sitting in the lunch break with my friend group at the time. We call it a friend group. I felt like very much an outsider in that group as well, which I heard that the other kids were calling our friend group in my year the misfits, which is also funny. I didn't even fit in with the misfits. And they'd be chatting at lunch breaks and I was never sitting in the middle. I was always sitting kind of on the edge, and on the rare times I was sitting in the middle, I was like, people were just kind of like talking over me like this, and people would have their backs to me. It would happen in classrooms as well, and I would just feel so upset. Like I would have this knot that would bury deep in my stomach of like, why am I not important? Why don't I matter? Why do people not want to hear what I have to say? And yeah, that was tough. I would just like slump back in my chair and hide behind a book, and I'd pretend to read it. I wouldn't actually read it. The words would kind of just blur in front of me. I just needed something to do so I looked less awkward. And so that was kind of my reality. And so when I was 16 years old, I was sick and tired. And, there's the phrase of often people only make a change when the pain is too great. The pain of not changing is the greater than the pain of changing and the pain of transformation. And so, yeah, I, as a classic early Gen Zer, went to Google, which is everyone's best friend at the time. I think now it's ChatGPT. But I typed in the words, how to get charisma, because I thought, well, I want to be popular. I feel like all these popular kids that I'm looking at school, they got some kind of manual on how to human. They got the 101 steps, and mine got lost in the post. Like, where's mine? And so I wanted to figure out the 101 steps of how to human. And so I went down all of these rabbit holes of listening to podcasts. I discovered podcasts for the first time, reading articles, and on this quest to understand how to human. And so I went down all these rabbit holes of learning about social skills and human psychology and the art of conversation and connection and networking and all these kinds of things. And slowly but surely, by trial and error and implementing these things and kind of going a bit too far on the pendulum in the opposite direction sometimes to really integrate that into my being, I became a more confident communicator. And I was suddenly able to look people in the eye, and I was able to, you know, look more engaging in conversation through gestures or whatever it is. And so I started to get that part down. And getting into Cambridge University and making some nice friends and living in a building that looked like a Disney castle, which was great. And yeah, kind of just like really enjoying the life there. I studied languages. And after my year abroad, I ended up in a finance internship. And it was another one of those big transformation periods in my life where I was like, all right, this is painful. This sucks. And before then, I'd just kind of been going around like, I know what entrepreneurship is. That sounds cool, but I never had the motivation to take action. But being in an environment where I was getting up super early every day to go to a purposeless profession, at least for me, around people who are saying, thank God it's Friday. Literally, finance at the time for me felt like a place of lost dreams. I remember one of my colleagues next to me, I said, what would you do if you weren't, working here? And she said, I think it was, I'd love to be an interior designer, or I'd love to be an art curator or something like that. And I said, oh, that's awesome. Like, why aren't you doing that? I was so confused as to why she wasn't doing that. And she said, well, I like money. And it just something in that just made me so sad. And so I decided enough of that. I want to learn about entrepreneurship. And so I remember going home while I was still working there, and I would like look up these entrepreneurship courses. And then I thought, well, how am I going to know about entrepreneurship? Well, the best way to do that is to connect with other entrepreneurs and to learn about them. Okay, why would they want to talk to me? I'm just a student. And so I decided to create a podcast because I thought, well, that's going to be a great excuse to talk to whoever I want to talk to. And so I remember coming back home late in the evenings from my internship, and I'd be like looking up Fiverr designers to design my logo, and I was buying the microphone and I was taking the actions. And then, yeah, after that, I ended up hitting up every event that I could find and just meeting entrepreneurs, and slowly but surely getting great people on the show. Through that, I made incredible friends. And soon enough, I'm in a position where 7 to 9 figure entrepreneurs are wanting to talk to me on my show to inspire the next generation, which was incredible. And I ended up meeting so many great people. And I started realizing, wow, I actually have a really good skill for relationship building because I had done so much work on myself on that in the past. And soon enough, I'm interviewing guests like the founder of Reebok, who I'm now a co-author in a book with. It's called Survive and Thrive. And I learned something very pivotal on that show, which is every time a guest would come on at the end of the show, once we stopped recording, I asked, hey, what are your goals? What is important to you right now? And so then I'd learn about what's important to these great people. And if there's a way that I could plug in and connect them into something that would be useful for them, or send them a resource or simple, that would build the relationship further. So I actually did that with the founder of Reebok, and I ended up making 6 introductions to help get his book at the time to a bestseller. And get him exposure, which he really appreciated. And so that's how I started building that relationship. And so I started helping other people how to build win-win, genuine relationships with some of the giants in the industry. And I didn't get them any connections. I just said, hey, here's how you show up to relationships. And they'd come back to me and they'd be like, oh my God, Yasmina, you're not going to believe it. And I said, what? And they're like, my team just reached out to the chief of defense of our country, who's the second most requested speaker next to the prime minister. And the chief of defense is speaking at our event. And then that person managed to create a very magical moment for his other friend who was in the Navy. And if you're in the Navy in that country, the chief of defense is like, oh my God, the person, like the idol. Because this friend was helping organize the event. They got the chief of defense to gift his friend flowers on stage in front of the entire National Navy. And then, they built a relationship further beyond that. I had another one who came back and was like, hey, thanks, Yaz. I didn't have any film contacts. Now I've got this massive group of film people. And now an Oscar award-winning film director is my personal film mentor, who was also a Joe Rogan podcast guest. And now he just recently released this incredible trailer for his dream documentary on innovation that he wanted to create. And it's got pioneers in there, like the founder of Shazam and other great people. So I was like, okay, I have a skill. This is really cool. And so I just started teaching, I started sharing, I started creating my own kinds of gatherings to bring incredible people together. And soon enough, I was scouted to run this group called Maverick Next, which is for, well, now it's for like 6, 7, 8-figure impact entrepreneurs under 30, the next generation doing incredible things for the world. And I was so honored to be invited to run that. The issue was at the time, it was this little, it was a sleepy little club on life support, and it needed some serious CPR. Because apparently I'm a masochist, I was like, great, let's do it. I so saw the potential. I believed in the potential of the group. And so I spent about a year traveling the world, meeting lots of incredible people, trying to rebuild this group from the ground up, and of course have other amazing life experiences for myself, And I met so many interesting people on the journey, and I ended up living with my $50 million mentor in Santa Monica for a month, and she met me off Zoom, and was a mentor who knew barely anything about me. I actually remember being at dinner with her in the second week, and I go, hey, so like, what do you actually know about me? And she's looking at me. She's like French. She's looking at me, and she's like, not much. And she said her friends thought she was crazy taking this absolute stranger in, but she just said, she had really good, gut instincts and senses of people. So that was a great experience. And then I remember arriving in Austin, Texas on a whim. The reason I went to Austin is I was like, oh, there are entrepreneurs in Austin, right? I heard that. I knew one person in Austin at the time. And then I left Austin 2 months later, having thrown several dinner parties with very, high net worth individuals, successful entrepreneurs. But what was wild is I was so broke at the time that I would literally walk an hour on the Texan highway to get to my own dinners because I didn't want to pay for Uber. And I just remember like sitting next to these multimillionaires of like, oh yeah, I could sell that arm of the business, like for if I wanted to, like just another 8 million, just another 8 million. I'm like, this guy was like 24 at the time, that guy. And I'm just sitting there like, yeah, just another 8 million. I just looked at my bank account that morning and it was like, not that. And yeah, I ended up getting into some other incredible rooms. I was invited to the first rule ball to take place in France, the French Revolution. VIP for free because I made some high-level introductions. They literally sat me next to a handsome prince in the Palace of Versailles. You cannot make this up. And being at Andrea Bocelli's farmhouse and being at some mastermind with Deepak Chopra for the Chopra Foundation. So I ended up in a lot of incredible rooms, but something still wasn't working. And what's interesting is I ended up in LA at one point during my travels. And I ended up hanging out for a few hours with a super connector at his apartment in Beverly Hills. And this guy, he has like a really flashy life, like hot model girlfriend, billionaire celebrity Rolodex, red carpet events, yacht parties, like everything that looks cool that like little boys who follow Andrew Tate are like, I want that kind of life, like that kind of person. And so we're talking about how he built his network. And this guy was really smart, like so smart, so sharp, really strategic, like almost like a chess player, like his network is a chessboard or something. And he knows a lot about human psychology. However, the human psychology elements that he was talking about, while tactical and while strategic, while smart, I was definitely making notes, they came from a manipulative energy. They came from a transactional energy, and they came from a really inauthentic energy. So I remember one of the stories he shared is like, oh yeah, you know, when you're at a yacht party around really successful people, stay quiet, don't say anything, because then you're mysterious and then they don't know anything about you and then they want to know about you. And then you kind of that person that just like connects people and they're like, who is this person? And then, you know, what, this, that, this, that. And I was sitting there listening to that. I was like thinking that I was like, okay, like I understand what you're saying. I understand the psychology behind it, understand that it's worked for him, and I understand the merit of it, but that just doesn't feel good to me whatsoever. um, and then at some point, he shared that he had had cancer previously, and he'd had this incredible network before he'd had cancer. But he said, when I got cancer, I lost my network. And I thought that was so tragic because I'm like, what's the reason to have a network? Okay, if you're building a network just to make money and go to flashy events, I'm sure what he was doing was fantastic. But if you're building a network for, you know, long-term wealth, long-term joy, long-term fulfillment, long-term adventure, long-term legacy in alignment with who you are, well, that kind of failed because a network is supposed to support you when you're at your lowest. That's why you build it. And I said, you know, well, why is that? Why did you lose your network? And he said, because I was no longer relevant. I was no longer on the scene. It's like, you know, I have friendships and long-term business relationships or just general personal relationships where we might not talk for months or even years, but then I know that they're always there for me. I know that they're there. I don't need to be relevant or on the scene. We just have a loving and genuine connection. And so that was really pivotal for me because while for the most part I was being genuinely myself while I was building relationships, I did have to look at a part of myself that was still being transactional, and I had to look at a part of myself that was jumping on calls that weren't aligned, or where I was being drained, or where I was hiding parts of myself because I was afraid I would be judged. Um, and so that really changed things for me because I thought, well, I'm okay with saying no to things that aren't aligned. I'm okay. I had to come to a place where I was okay with saying no to people that I actually genuinely didn't feel like I really liked, loved, and connected with. And I think so many people are stuck in this trap of connecting with people and building relationships to quote unquote network because, oh, well, this person has lots of money, or this person has lots of status, or this person is something that I want, or this person can open doors for me. If you're connecting with someone, which is all well and good, but if you're connecting with someone just for that reason, and there's no deeper heart connection or deeper relationship, then you're not building a genuine relationship that has longevity and that's going to last. And it might be okay if you're like quote unquote using each other for a transaction. And I'm not judging transactional relationships whatsoever. They all have their place. But it's not the things that are going to elevate you to your highest potential and to your greatness. And so, um, you know, when I came back to London after those travels, this community was still failing and it was really weighing on me. And I remember there was a period where I was so burnt out that, like, I was like, there was one day I was so burnt out, my brain wasn't working. I literally was like, hey, I'm going to read one of my favorite books. This is going to be easy. I open up my Kindle, I get to page 1, and my brain's looking at the words, and my brain's like, sorry, I can't read words right now. So all I could do was like lie in my bed and listen to like an audio, like a really nice audiobook of a fiction novel. And like going around the corner to the shop was like a whole expedition. I was that burnt out. And what really saved me at the time is I had a relationship that we'd been friends for 4 years. We'd supported each other so much in like our like wingmanning, wingwomaning, romantic dating lives, you know, landing each other great opportunities, like speaking opportunities or like brilliant podcast guests. This was the guy that prompted me to message the founder of Reebok in the first place. And it's just like a really loving friendship. And we were catching up on all kinds of things. And he goes, hey, you know, how's it going? And I was like, actually, I'm like not well. And I was super honest and I shared that I was like really freaking out because we'd co-created this impact award to turn around the community to bring incredible young entrepreneurs around the world from all around the world to Necker Island and into our community, and to Necker Island to learn from other incredible industry leaders, luminaries, and to have dinner with Sir Richard Branson and spend time with him at his home, surrounded by flamingos and giant tortoises and lemurs. And, that project was also failing. And he came in, he said, "Hey, I'll help you out. Like, it'd be my pleasure." And so I remember that was like a godsend for me. And we had 2 months to turn it around. The website was crap. We had no donors, we had no applicants. And we just got on a bunch of calls, set the strategy, gathered a volunteer team. They didn't work out. So fired the volunteer team, did everything ourselves. And, turn it around, really. Before we know it, we're standing on the beach on Necker Island. And we had this moment, like this friendship moment, where we just look each other in the eyes with just pure love and pure joy. Just this feeling of like, wow, we did it. Like, look where we started 4 years ago and look what we created together. And it wasn't even just a we did it from the perspective of like, oh, we're on this cool island. It was more of a we did it of like, we turned around this project, we turned around this community that's going to impact so many lives. Because when we can get these incredible entrepreneurs in their 20s who are already doing really well to magnify their impact 100x, look at all of the people that they're going to impact through their businesses. And look at how their lives are going to be impacted now from being in community. And so on that trip, we had like a 30 under 30 sustainability leader from Norway. And she was like, the Norwegian press was following her every step on the trip. We had another guy who was 26 who'd raised like $800 million total in like different capital, VC, nonprofits, all kinds of amazing people. And the community has kind of spiraled from there. So we're doing it the 3rd year in a row now. But yeah, I would say one of the biggest lessons I've learned on my journey is how do you build relationships that attract soul aligned connections, that where you literally end up creating this little vortex for yourself where suddenly all these amazing opportunities and people and deals and adventures flow to you, and it's all in alignment, and it's all from a place of love. And you're never hopping on a call because you feel like you have to. You're always hopping on calls with amazing people because you feel like you want to. And then your life just ends up like some weird fantasy. Like, people tell me, Yasmina, like, I don't really understand like what you're doing. Like, how did you end up free climbing a waterfall in Costa Rica? Like, how did you end up in all of these wacky places? And it's through exponential relationships. I call it exponential relationships, which is relationships that are built from the heart and from love, from a place of genuineness that elevate you to your highest potential. And so, yeah, I think, you're all about those kinds of things, because I think, with what you're doing with Circus is how can you live a life that's truly of your own design? How can you live a life where you feel strong and fulfilled and everything's adventure and fun and playful, but deeply connecting and impactful? And I think that's just such a beautiful way to live.
I love it. Yeah, there's a lot to unpack in that, and a few different through lines that I can relate to personally growing up and kind of feeling uncomfortable inserting myself in conversations, or kind of taking a little bit of backseat, or being overwhelmed by the situation. And, when my wife met me in college, I didn't talk a lot. So she thought I was like an asshole because, because I wasn't talking, kind of like the guy in the back of the room. And, but meanwhile, I'm like the most genuine, nicest person, in my heart. So being misunderstood or not feeling comfortable being the center of attention is something I think a lot of people can relate to, when they're going through school, especially people that are very sensitive to like the surroundings and can feel the energy of people. And we don't know that when we're growing up, like that's the thing that we're kind of reacting to, or situations where, it's maybe safer to be unseen, because we might get hurt, or all these different conversations that we experience growing up. And I remember, doing a speech class in college, And it was one of those classes where I didn't want to do it, but I wanted to do it to get outside my comfort zone. And I wound up doing a talk around surfing. And what I did was I grabbed my surfboard and made sure that the attention was on the surfboard, this big, like 6'4" surfboard right next to me, because anytime there was like focus or attention on me, I felt very uncomfortable. And I wasn't sure why they did why that was for so many years. And then feeling, the fear or not comfortable going and taking risks, so that was a really big thing for me. So I actually got into adventure sports and surfing and all these other different things to help build up that fear resilience, because my body would feel this experience, even though my mind would want to do all these like extreme things. And so I think a lot of people can relate to that. And similarly, the financial industry, spending a decade in that, wanting to serve others and help them build for retirement, and not being aligned. And then that moment where there's a shift in your heart and you're like, this isn't what I was meant to be doing at all. And then you and I both made that decision to do something different. We didn't know what direction it would go, but there was this desire to connect with ourselves. And the deeper that we connect with ourselves, the deeper that we connect with others in a very genuine way. So, going and, like you said, starting to put myself out there, and starting to spend time with people that were outside like the norm of who I might regularly spend time with, in and aligning values. I think that was for me, was like when I truly wanted to understand the person's values and what they stood for in the world. And like you said, how I can support that person, even if I have a small network or like small resources at the time. There could be something you don't know until you ask somebody might be looking for. They might be just looking for a hug, and you give somebody a hug and that's all they're looking for. And that's value. So really understanding what value meant to others was a huge shift. And actually, started sending email out to some of my business heroes and mentors. And Mavericks, and Yannick was one of those people that I first reached out to. We have that kind of bond and thread through that conversation and interaction. And he emailed me back. I'm like, I was shocked, like this guy that had, achieved some very good success in the world and was networking with some high level people. And then also reaching out to my childhood surfing mentor, Brad Gerlach, who was #1 surfer in the world. And people were starting to respond because they felt my authenticity in my heart. And like a lot of people approach relationships with like an agenda, right? Like, what can I get out of this? And I don't think I had a very strong disconnect from that. Like, I was aware that there could be something that could come out of it, but it wasn't like I was setting out with an intention to get something out of it. It was more so to actually maybe even thank that person for the things that they've already done for me, even though they hadn't met me, and going in with that intention, which was awesome. And then, same thing, wound up, meeting and getting mentored by, by billionaires. And you're like, how in the world do you go from here to here? And it's simply taking that leap of faith and releasing yourself from like the selflessness, right? Like just showing up and being you. And people appreciate that, because I think there's so many people out there that are wanting to be something they're not. And then you can instantly sense it. And I think it's refreshing for anybody, regardless of their stature, to connect with people that are connected with themselves, which then has them feel connected to themselves and wanting to spend more time with people like that. I don't know if you've kind of felt that same way, but that's kind of how we came together. Like energy attracts like energy. And you know and there's sparks, right? There's magic, there's things that happen very, very quickly, like you were saying about getting down to Costa Rica and creating an amazing experience for a group of people. And it's like setting that intention, and then that intention coming into reality very, very quickly, which then sometimes confuses people. That they're like, well, how did you do that? And you're like, well, I kind of know, but I don't know. That's like, I'm just being me. So maybe we talk a little bit more into that exponential relationship piece. And it's intentional but unintentional, I think, to a certain extent. It's like a holding and
Yeah.
releasing at the same time.
I have about 500 comments and different routes I could go down based on everything you just said. But as you say, yeah, it is very intentional, but it's an unattached intentional. So it's an intentional connecting with yourself, and it's an intentional understanding what makes people tick, and it's an intentional understanding of things that typically work when it comes to good relationships, but infusing it with an authentic, heart-centered energy and becoming completely detached from the outcome. That's what it is. Um, it's so interesting what you were saying around connecting with people who are connected to themselves. It's so key. You know, you can only go as deep with someone as they've gone as deep with themselves. And I remember I had a relationship, and in that relationship, I remember feeling dissatisfied in elements of it. And the reason is because I had gone so deep with myself in my personal development and in my spirituality and in really connecting to myself, my passion, purpose, my essence, my values. And she hadn't. And so when she would think we're having a deep conversation, and I'd be bored out of my mind because I'm like, well, this to me, this is so surface level because she'd not gone deep with herself in that way. And that can be frustrating and that can be dissatisfying. So I think the first key is to really go deep with yourself. I also love what you said about, like maybe all they need is a hug. When try like reframing what giving value means. And I think when people think about the idea of giving value, they often think it's something tangible. Oh, I need to donate my time, or like give a resource or money or a skill set or a connection. All of those are great ways of giving value. But actually, one of the most underrated and most effective ways of actually giving value is to give someone positive emotions, because everyone wants to move towards feeling good emotions and move away from feeling bad emotions. So if someone is in your presence and they feel bad emotions, they're going to want to distance themselves from you and not spend time with you because you trigger bad emotions for them. That's the experience of spending time with you. But if you're someone who's just a joy and a delight to spend time with, or you're hilarious, or you're just really loving and you make someone feel really safe or just happy and jolly, they're going to want to spend more time with you. I actually remember I was at an event very recently with a lot of incredible industry leaders. And there was someone there who I connected with who I hadn't spoken to very much, but I could thought, okay, this is like a really, nice guy, and like we connected in a way. And we ended up exchanging a couple texts and hopping on a call very recently. And he said, like, I was observing you at the event and I was thinking, yeah, I like her energy, and she seems cool, and there's like a vibe there. And then he said, you know, and then when you said goodbye, that's when I really got it. And I could see and feel the love coming from you. And I thought, I like this person. And he literally opened the phone call. This guy sold $1 billion company. Okay. And he's got crazy stories about yoga's levitating. And so, he's a very, very successful person. And he says, hey, I have a lot of acquaintances, but I don't have many friends. I really don't have many friends. I think you could be a friend. That is the power of showing up as truly authentically yourself, who's so in tune with yourself and your heart that it radiates something that people want to be around.
Yeah. Yeah. That can relate. When you were saying about creating those emotions years ago, I went to one of my first, investments in myself to work with some mentors, and they asked a question to me, and they said, "What kind of emotions do you want to create in others as a path forward, or a way of being?" And I was kind of taken back because I'd never thought about that, and it came to helping people feel alive and awakened inside. And and looking back and you connecting that dot to, like, why is it that there is a number of people in my network that not only I enjoy spending time with, but they also enjoy spending time with me. And like that feeling of alive and awakened, that's almost like that intention under the surface, like somebody that I connect with or talk with, feeling alive and awakened. A lot of people in this world are kind of disconnected from themselves and disconnected from their emotions, and they haven't given themselves permission to feel. So, if I can instill that in just a way of being, like it's not even something that if I say or do or whatever that is, but just kind of that intention sometimes creates that seed for people to feel truly alive and awakened, and
Mm.
connecting to that purpose in anything that I do. So I think that we have being for you as well, kind of instilling that in yourself, and then moving into relationships or into scenarios or into rooms or energetic spaces where there's this light that shines on, and it comes out in every aspect of your being, like the smile, like just like even just you sitting there, um, interact, like when we were in Costa Rica, there was moments of times where you were there and you were kind of reflecting, or weren't even interacting, but you can sense this feeling of maybe loving the environment around you, the people around you, and you might not have been even interacting at the moment. Like you might have been taking some downtime or whatever that was. So it was very interesting to see you navigate that time together. Um, and even knowing you for less than what, like 6 months, or it's pretty recent since we
It's been
connected.
about a year. It's been about a year. We
Really?
connected, I think we connected last March 2024.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was, yeah, and that was our first time together in person. A lot of times you meet people virtually and you kind of get a sense, but then you get in person, and there's all that energy that mixes up, and you get to experience that real time. And
Absolutely.
yeah, it's so you've always had that very caring, compassionate, understanding approach to, like, the relationship that we've developed over the year, which is awesome. So it's not surprising that you'd be invited to all these different places, and people that normally have walls, and there's reasons that they have things that screen people, because there are a lot of people that are just out for themselves or looking to leverage an opportunity or all that other stuff. So I love the releasing
Mm.
yourself from outcome and just showing up, and knowing that every single human being is a human being. Like nobody's different regardless of their success. They might have had different skill sets or had different mentors, or but we're all human and we all feel the same thing. And I think if we go into those relationships and really understanding people at the core and understanding ourselves, the things that'll, like, I still can't imagine, like 10 years ago, the 10-year-old, or 10 years ago me, looking at the experiences that I had because I stepped into who I truly was. It's mind blowing. And I'm sure you look back some days, you're like, how in the world, you know, did I get to this spot? Um, so I
Yeah.
think super, super powerful. So if you had maybe one challenge for,
Yeah, and it's
go
sorry.
I was gonna say, go ahead. You were gonna say something.
I think we just had a connection issue.
Okay. So if you had one, one or two, maybe three challenges for people, this week that they can implement immediately in order to level up their relationships, level up their connections, and level up their life, what would you say those would be, out of all the years that you've worked on becoming that human being that can hold the space in pretty much any space?
I have so many. I can give you four. I'm going to base them off, but I'm going to base them off the conversation we've been having. So, first of all, I think people really underestimate people's willingness and ability to respond to someone with the right offer or mindset. So, you said you reached out to the number one surfer in the world, right? And got a really nice response and maybe even built a relationship. I don't know. But built a relationship, which is incredible, right? And people have these really inflated conceptions in their mind of like, that person's not going to like respond. Little old me. Why would they talk to little old me? Right? But what you'll find is like often people have a perception that someone that they really admire, their inbox is flooded. So there's no way they're going to see their message. What most people don't realize is unless they're like a big celebrity or a big influencer, in which case, fine, people don't reach out to them. Like think about someone like the CEO of Dropbox or something like that. Like someone like that might have 100 followers on Instagram. You can totally reach out to that person, with something that's going to make them want to respond to you. I mean, Tim Ferriss has some great content on that. There's a book called The Third Door where Alex Banayan talks about how he ended up interviewing lots of incredible luminaries. And I think no, I had a friend who had a really powerful mentor in his life. He was he friends with Jim Rohn? He had Jim Rohn for dinner. I think it was Jim Rohn. It was one of these like really big, like old classic guys. And so this guy, he was in the publishing industry, I believe, or he was friends with lots of authors. And he said, I have dinners with these like incredible authors, and I'm friends with a lot of them. No one reaches out to them. They write these incredible books, these life-changing books, and no one reaches out to them. Why does no one reach out to them? Because they think, well, why are they going to respond to me? So actually, one, the competition is very low. Two, you're going to lose absolutely nothing from reaching out. So like the first thing I would encourage is think about someone that you admire, not a big celebrity or big time influencer, but someone who you genuinely admire. Maybe they wrote a book that you love. Maybe they were featured in an article that you love, and find a way to reach out to them. Find their email from like one of these funky Apollo.io scouting websites. Find their LinkedIn, whatever it is, send a message. And the message can be as simple as, hey X, I absolutely loved what you did here, and specifically here's the specific takeaway that I learned from it, and here's specifically how I implemented it in my life, and specifically here's how it changed my life. Be super specific. Like that thing that you said on page 33, I implemented it in my life and it changed my life, and I just wanted to reach out and applaud all the great work you're doing. Like, thank you so much. It can be as simple as that. Something as simple as that can start a relationship. Boom, there you go. If you're someone who takes action and gets amazing results and feels good to be around and is hungry, people like that are often desperate to mentor someone great because it feels good. They want to give back. They want to make an impact. So become a good mentee. The one thing I'll add to that is, you might put these people on a pedestal. Don't put them on a pedestal. It doesn't do them a favor. It puts them in a really awkward place of being glorified. It iconizes them, and it prevents you from being able to form a genuine connection with them. And there's a great quote from Plato. I believe it was, friendship cannot be formed among equals. So as soon as you put someone on a pedestal, you can no longer be their friend because you're not an equal in their mind because you created a bullshit hierarchy. So that's number one. Number two is, well, you were talking about, caring and compassion, and everyone is a human, and that's totally true. And discernment is important. You can be totally caring and compassionate and understand everyone's humanity, and everyone is truly doing the best that they can with what they know in their current state of consciousness, and always show up with love to all these people. However, you're not obligated to spend your time with anyone. Your energy is a very valuable resource, and you want to curate a life where you're around people that only truly light up your heart and soul. So something I would recommend you to do is, there's a friend I have called Randy Molland. He came up with this incredible framework. It's called +2 energy, where he can rate people in his life on an energetic level from +2 to -2. And the very short, simple summary of it is that +2 is like someone that like you could talk to them forever on the phone for hours. Like you just would not want to stop talking to them. These are great people to have around. +1, you might not want to talk to hours on the phone, maybe, but like you still feel really good when you're around them. You have a good time. That's great. 0 is the danger zone. It's in limbo because you're not sure, like, do they give me energy or do they drain my energy? I'm not sure. So if someone's a 0 in your life, you might want to quickly decide, okay, are they a +1 or a -1? -1 is someone when you're around them, it's just like, oh, my energy's a bit drained. I don't know. This doesn't feel good. -2 is like, never speak to this person again. Like they just like totally drain your energy. And the reason why this is important is, let's say that you have a meeting with someone. Let's say that they're a -1 or a -2. So they drain your energy on the meeting and the call. And then after that, you have a sales call. How are you going to perform in the sales call? Probably worse. Probably less likely to close a sale because you're not at your best and your energy's drained. How are you going to treat your spouse or your kids when you come home? Maybe you'll be a bit short with them. Maybe you'll be a bit touchy. So it's not serving you in any way. Let's say you have a meeting with someone who's a +2. Then you have a sales call. Are you going to nail that sales call? Yes, you are going to nail that sales call. Absolutely. And then you're going to come home and you're going to give your wife and kids a big hug and you have great quality time. And your whole, like, if your whole day is filled with just +2 people, your whole day is just this magical, blissful experience. So, and Randy actually used this approach to hire his whole team. He said, if they don't feel +2 to me, they're not on my team. Guess what? His team is amazing. And also, you know, those energies kind of attract each other. So they're all +2 to each other as well. So they all energize each other all day. What an amazing hiring strategy. So what I would recommend is, as you go through your next week, I would encourage you to really take note of when you're speaking to someone. Are they a +2, a +1, -1, -2? And use your discernment from there to see who you want to spend more time with, who you want to reduce time with, who you even want to completely eliminate spending time with. And I know I've been going on for quite a bit, so maybe I'll give you one more super quick one, which is you already have incredible people in your life, probably. Like you already have someone that's impacted your life. Like when you think about it, there might be someone that's even changed your life completely in a really positive way. Maybe they have no idea. Or maybe you just thought of someone recently and you just want to know how they're doing, or you're just sending love and appreciation. So one of my favorite ways to nurture my network is when I think about someone, or when someone's recommended something or done something that has a positive impact in my life, I'll send them a voice message or a video message. I would recommend doing that over a text message because that's much higher touch. So you're going to get a lot more. You're going to get a lot more out, like a connection from that in the relationship. And I'll say, you know, hey, John, I just want to thank you so much from the bottom of my heart, because I was so deeply moved by the experience we had together in Costa Rica, and the way that you showed up and the transformation that you facilitated for us, and the group that was curated there for us was so heart fulfilling and so phenomenal. You know, I loved writing my obituary by the rapids, and you know, the death ceremony at the sunrise was so powerful. Just like truly life changing. I'm still in touch with everyone there, and you know, with one of the people, I'm hopping on a creative jam call on Wednesday, and we're having such a good time. And like, all of this is down to you and what you created. And I even think about the time that I climbed and jumped off the waterfall, which at the time I was not super happy about, but I appreciate the ability to really jump out of my comfort zone through the experiences that you facilitated. So I just wanted to let you know that I'm thinking about you and the effect that that's had on me. Thank you so much.
I love that. Yeah, I love your messages that you send every now and then, and you know, it puts a smile on my face, and I'm totally using that for a testimonial.
And you know, you would not believe the opportunities that come up, because when you do that, you're suddenly top of mind for someone. So
Yeah.
they're like you're suddenly on their radar again in a really positive way, and they're like, oh wait, actually let's catch up, and then you catch up. Wait, oh you're doing this, that's so cool. I have a speaking opportunity for you. Boom. I have a deal for you. Boom. I have a thing I want to invite you to. Boom. So it's a great, easy, fun way to say it's super top of mind with your network.
100%. I love it. Yeah, I really appreciate you. Everything that you're doing in the world really resonates with me. I'm so glad that we've been able to come together to experience life, to experience Costa Rica, to align emissions and support one another. And I know it's one of those lifelong journeys. And, anything that comes up, that I've got your back and you can reach out to me anytime. And that's the type of relationships that I love. And so if you're listening, you don't have relationships like that, definitely reach out to Yasmina. She's got an amazing program to help people really learn how to exponentially create connections that last a lifetime and then are exponential. And if you don't, I think you're insane. So
If you want
that's
to reach
Yasmina.
out to me,
Mhm.
if you want to reach out to me, you can reach out to me on Instagram is probably the best place at Yasmina Ellins, YASMINAELLINS. Please do reach out to me. Tell me what you thought of the podcast. Tell me what your biggest takeaway was. I love to hear it. Nobody reaches out to me. Like do it makes an impact. And also I've got a website. It's kind of under development right now, but it's launching soon at www.yasminaellins.com.
I love it. Thank you, Yasmina. As always, it's been absolute pleasure. So I appreciate you guys listening to the Underground Warriors podcast today. And, looking forward to staying relentless, pursuing our dreams, and creating some impact in the world. So thank you, guys.
Thank you, John.
Okay.